You're listening to a podcast of spurious morality. Hello and welcome to a podcast of spurious morality. I'm Johnstone and I'm with Gareth today. Hello, Gareth.
Hello.
And this isn't a trilogies, this isn't a 275, we're doing something completely different. In fact, we're tapping into territory that Spodcast hasn't really gone to before. We are looking at Dark Season. So Dark Season was the first ever thing that Russell T Davies wrote for telly. It's coincidentally also the first thing that ever starred Kate Winslet. And it was a series in, I think, 91. It was a CBBC series. And then Big Finish did what they do best and brought it back years and years later for a whole new generation. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have a quick chat about the original series, and then we're going to have a look at Dark Season Legacy Rising, which was the Big Finish release that we got. We also got an audiobook, which was the novelisation of the series that Russell T Davies did. It's very target novelisation, but we'll sort of touch on that a bit more afterwards. So before we get going, Gareth, what was it that sort of made you decide, I'm going to do Dark Season in 2025?
Yeah, so it was just something I'd been aware of for ages because of Doctor Who, really. And yeah, I only watched it about 2 weeks ago, but I already had the audio series kind of put to one side. And to be honest, I had heard the novelisation. I bought that a while ago for the same reason, really. It was a very dim memory, though, so I had forgotten all of it by the time I got to the TV series. But yeah, it was just time, really.
Fair enough. See, I watched the series a couple of years ago because Big Finish announced that they were bringing it back. Like, I wasn't that fussed when the audiobook came along. It was like, oh, that's probably something I'll get to one day. And then they announced they were doing like a new full cast thing, and they had Kate Winslet in it and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, okay, this is done enough to get my interest, and sort of from putting my media is genuinely a topic I'm interested in hat on. I thought I'd better watch this then. Russell T Davies' first series. It's sort of relatively significant in TV history, that I suppose. And I watched it. It was back in the days of BritBox. I don't think BritBox is about anymore in the UK, is it? But it was on BritBox, and I thought, right, 6 episodes, 25 minutes each. That's fairly harmless. That's Planet of the Spiders, that is. So I watched it and really, really enjoyed it. Thought it was fantastic. I mean, there was enough to drag me sort of into it. Like, Jacqueline Pearce was there as well. And as we know, she's just fantastic in everything she was ever in. And I did hear a lot of people sort of go, it's very much what we'd have got if we'd have got a Doctor Who series in the early 90s. And I think that's absolutely right. I mean, it's absolutely impossible to talk about Dark Season without pointing out the many, many, many similarities to Doctor Who. The serialised format, the fact that Marcy is just the Doctor, like a lost incarnation, and all this kind of thing. And Legacy Rising really plays into that. Like, we'll come to this a bit more later. But they don't even bother trying to pretend that they're not amalgamating Dark Season, Dark Universe, flipping Universal. They're not even trying to amalgamate Dark season into the Whoniverse at all. So I like it. It's something that I think every Doctor Who fan should get on board with if they get the chance. It's the equivalent of watching a fairly long classic Who story, and you'll have just as much fun, I think. So you've sort of made some notes about the series, haven't you? Do you want to kind of fire off those?
Yeah, I'll summarize. So, I mean, the first thing I noticed was just the kind of nostalgia, and this obviously was unintentional, but it's 1991 and it's schools. So even though I was slightly too young, so I should point out I didn't see this at the time, I was about 6. This is exactly what I remember schools looking like, so that was all quite exciting. It's just a really great kind of mix immediately of incredibly mundane setting and incredibly weird kind of unsettling atmosphere, which obviously is something Russell T Davies went on to really capitalize on, and he would do again many in several ways during Dark Season. Stuff like the production, where the camera is occasionally sort of Dutch angles, the music, which is kind of borrowing from stuff like Aliens. Weirdly, there's these kind of growling atmospheric noises going on, and by the end of the first episode, you've got a character who's been seemingly possessed by a computer, and they're sort of glowing with strange energy, and that causes all of the windows to explode. It's a really great kind of, it suddenly escalates into this very weird thing, and the pace of it is very, very fast. So Dark Season, the TV series, splits into 2 stories of 3 episodes, and both of them are practically real time. There's sort of no let up at all, which must have been really exciting for kid viewers at the time. Even now, watching it, it's like, God, this is really fast paced. You know, you can see that kind of the energy of like Russell's Doctor Who very much baked into this. And yeah, apparently that he has denied this on Wikipedia. It says so anyway. But Marcy really does feel like the Doctor. But I don't think that's in any way a negative. I think the character kind of just exemplifies what he likes about Doctor Who. Because you've got this setup where Marcy has effectively got 2 companions, and they make this choice, or sorry, he makes this choice, which I think is quite clever, where Marcy is actually younger than they are. She's a 3rd year, they're both 5th years. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, that's a really subtle way to kind of go, this character is out of time, because it doesn't make sense, you know, when you think of it like a school kid would. It doesn't make sense that the younger kid is going to be smarter and more worldly than the older kids. And that's, in a way, kind of like how Doctor Who is this old man who's just full of weird enthusiasm and energy all the time. So I loved Marcy. I thought Nicola Lambert was absolutely incredible. Just she really nailed it. If you want to look at it as like a lost Doctor Who, which I know it isn't, honestly, I think it's a very credible stab. I think she's really sort of great at the kind of mystery solving, and she's got lots of energy, and she kind of holds her own with all the adults in the series and with Mr. Eldritch, who is the creepy sunglasses wearing bad guy who you don't really know anything about. He's kind of just vibed, really, but Grant Parsons is really kind of to the scenery in a good way, and him and Nicola Lambert have a really good kind of villain hero rapport. There's loads of kind of dramatic high points kind of squeaked into there. Like I said, the bit where the girl causes all of those windows to explode. There's this strange process going on where people's hands just hover over computers, and then all of the keys operate themselves, suggesting like a synthesis between people and computers. That's all obviously dated quite well, really, because we're all obsessed with AI and computers these days. And it's just a great tight little story. I mean, there's a couple of really terrific kind of dramatic high points. There's a great bit where there's this couple, a professor who has fled from persecution with his wife, and Mr. Eldritch has made it his mission to kidnap this guy. And towards the end, there's this great moment where the professor says, he just starts laughing because it looks like all is lost. And then Mr. Eldritch, who's this terrifying character, says, "Oh, what the hell are you laughing at?" And he says, "Well, the professor's my wife, actually, and none of you." bothered to consider that possibility. And you just think, oh, that's such a Russell T Davies kind of, taking some kind of real world obviousness and kind of sneaking it in there in a way that's sort of beyond his evil clever clogs characters, that they would not think about something like that. So I just was really impressed with stuff like that. And then the second half of the series, or the second story, I guess, is kind of a much more much more kind of B-movie thing, but it does have Jacqueline Pearce in it, so you get your Blake 7 points there. And that one's about an evil computer hidden by the Nazis underneath the school, which is a very different story, but eventually it ties into Mr. Eldritch as well. And it builds to this incredible, genuinely, remarkable set piece where this computer rises out of the floor of a school gym, and the computer, again, we're continuing the theme, it links to humans. There's this synthesis between people and machines, and the Dark Season has this skepticism about all that. Again, that has aged quite well. And just the sight of this computer ripping through the floorboards of a school gym is kind of immediately like, how the hell did they do that? And that moment really kind of felt like a sort of Series 1 Doctor Who thing, because you just think he's married up the kind of ridiculous, incredible sci-fi fantasy thing, but he's also wedged it firmly in the kind of real world. And that's such a great uncanny feeling that is quite Doctor Who, and he has made it more Doctor Who, like quintessentially so. And yeah, there's an even more impressive bit where the machine goes back underneath the school, and then it gets flooded. And you think, God, how on earth did they do that? On the extras for the Big Finish thing, which we'll talk about in a sec, Russell was saying that he genuinely couldn't believe they did it, and he's impressed by it even now. And I think that's the case. So I mean, I would say that it's fast paced, it's smart without feeling like it's trying too hard, and it's just weird enough to kind of resemble Doctor Who whilst still, kind of believably being something that kids would just pick up and watch, having no interest in Doctor Who at all. And you've got to mention Kate Winslet, obviously, and I think ironically she kind of has the least to do. It obviously meant a great deal to her because, as we'll get onto, she came back and did a Big Finish series about it. I mean, people don't just do that. But yeah, as a character, she kind of gets a little bit left behind in the TV series. Thomas, the sort of comic relief character, played by Ben Chandler, I believe, he gets a lot more to do. He's kind of given a lot of the funny lines, and Reet, who's Kate Winslet's character, is a little bit more kind of get tied up kind of character. But yeah, there's no denying she's really good in it. And yeah, I mean, I have really nothing negative to say about the TV series. Oh well, all right. There's one, which is in the second part of the story with the underground computer. There are these characters who all have very, very suspicious-looking blonde wigs, and they do factor into the plot. It is plot relevant that these characters are all blonde, but they're not supposed to be wearing wigs, and they're quite bad. So I'm guessing all of the budget went on stuff like the underground computer, and there's this wonderful bit where the skeptical teacher comes to the rescue riding a digger, which is very destructive. That's another bit. Like there's some more budget for you. I guess they just didn't have the money for the wigs. I'll forgive them. So yeah, I'm kind of hoping there's a Blu-ray release in the future. I've no reason to believe there will be, but something about it seems like the kind of recent slow of things like Box of Delights and Chronicles of Narnia. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm hoping they'll, because it's out of print on DVD now, but I hope they'll pop out a Blu-ray soon. But yeah, go watch it if you can.
I definitely hope it sees a Blu-ray release like that. It absolutely should get an updated version, and it should be handled in the same way they've handled, like you say, Box of Delights, and I think they've done Chronicles of Narnia recently, haven't they? The BBC.
It's just come out, yeah.
Yeah. So it's that kind of telly is starting to get attention again, and I know that Chris Chapman, who has obviously written Big Finish and does a lot of the wonderful work on the Doctor Who Blu-rays, he's done work for Box of Delights and Narnia as well, and he wrote an episode of Legacy Rising, so he obviously knows Dark Season exists, and hopefully if the Blu-ray materialises, we'll have loads of wonderful additional content by people that already make us loads of wonderful additional content as Doctor Who fans. So that'd be really good. I've not an awful lot to add about the series, really. Like I say, I saw the series a few years ago and kind of agree with all of your notes there, but I did find the audiobook was an interesting listen. So Victoria Lambert reads it, so she sort of gets the voice of Marcy absolutely perfect because she's Marcy, but does an absolutely fantastic job of just kind of getting everybody. You know, it's not too full of characters. Sort of in terms of main characters, you've got the trio, you've got Miss Maitland, you've got Mr. Eldridge, and you've got I want to call her Servalan Pendragon. So they're the only real sort of main characters in the thing. You have a couple of others, obviously. There's a scientist. Is his name Oxley? I think, off the top of my head.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's sort of Eldridge's right-hand man. And I can't remember the name of the characters that kind of turn it with Pendragon in the second part now. But anyway, what it does is pretty much what a Target novel does for a Doctor Who story. It tells the story. It tells it in pretty good detail. It gives us a little bit more insight into sort of characters. There are little bits. There's most notably at the end of sort of the first plot and the end of the second plot, there's a little chapter that just on each that just kind of wraps things up a little bit. So, you know, we hear what happens to Oxley, we hear what happens to the scientists and this kind of thing. So it's a nice little touch. It doesn't do anything massive, though. It doesn't deviate from the original story. It doesn't add anything massive. There's no huge Reet subplot that completely redeems the character or anything like that. It just rattles along and pretty much describes what we saw on screen. But that's fine. That's all good. It can do that. So yeah, I've not an awful lot to add about the series or indeed the audiobook. Just is worth a listen. If you're familiar with the series, you'll like the audiobook as well. But it's the story you know. It's not doing anything different. And I definitely think Russell T Davies is a better scriptwriter than he is novelist, but that's probably a conversation for another day. Then there was a Big Finish series years later. They brought it back. So Legacy Rising was kind of the sequel that came out in 2023, if I remember correctly, and it's Dark Season: The Next Generation. We'll do that story by story. So we'll start with Spring. You've reviewed that a little bit, haven't you? Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's a slightly different format. This goes for all four. You've got 1 hour, and it's broken into 3 20-minute episodes. So it kind of emulates that story feel you got in Dark Season, where really quite insane things are happening at this school, but you know they've got to roll with the punches and just move on to the next season, really. And yeah, the format's also a bit different in that they chose to kind of modernize it. So they've gone, okay, we're going to set it now. We're going to have different kids. One of them is going to be Reed's daughter, Taylor, and the other two are going to be completely fresh new characters. So I really like the cast. I just think that they're quite a strong trio. They're not really going for the same dynamic. They don't have a Marcy, so to speak. Taylor is probably the closest because she's kind of heard all of the stories from Reed and she's really interested in that kind of thing. The other two are very clever and kind of ambitious, but yeah, they don't really feel the same. But I quite like that. It doesn't feel like it's retreading Dark Season. It is very much capitalizing on the same ideas. So in Spring, you get the idea of an AI that's kind of, it's hard not to feel like you're misusing that term these days. But anyway, it is literally an artificial intelligence that kind of lives in a Ring doorbell, and other devices as well. And of course, it's evil. So what else would it be? And there's this quite sort of sad story of a mum and her daughter who are kind of, we eventually learn, related to this evil force. And there's kind of elements of alchemy kind of snuck in there as well. So the story kind of feels like it's got mythological leanings as well as science fiction, which I quite like. There's a lot of that in the original TV series. There's kind of little nods to things of like weird mythology. So that feels like it's kind of playing in the same park as the original series. But yeah, it's a lot more modern. They've got a new teacher now, who is the daughter of the original teacher. And yeah, I think Spring is quite a tight little story. It's a familiar kind of idea, the sort of evil AI run amok, but with quite a bit of sort of gloss on it, because you've got Kate Winslet in it as well. It actually, I'm embarrassed to say, I got to the end of the episode kind of waiting for Kate Winslet's cameo, and then realised she'd been in it quite consistently because she was the mum character. I must have not heard the right name or something, and maybe I've never heard Kate Winslet just do voice work. But no, she's really good as Reed. Well, as Reed, Taylor's mum. But yeah, it's a pretty strong start. I think it does its ideas very well.
I think the main purpose of Spring is to kind of go, okay, well, we've got some familiar territory for you here, but it is very much updated for the 21st century, because obviously 30 odd years have passed since the original series. So it does kind of play in that safety zone. Like you say, there's a new trio. There's not really a Marcy character there, but we've got a lead character. To be honest, I think it's very, very Sarah Jane Adventures. I think the original's very, very Sarah Jane Adventures, and I think that the series has a huge influence on it. But it would be silly if it didn't, when you think about it. But this is even more so. This kind of leans into that a little bit more, and thankfully, it's Sarah Jane Adventures and not Class that they've kind of been inspired by. Yeah, so we've got a new trio. They're great. I don't think they stand out perhaps as well as the original three. I think the original three all had sort of very, very defined roles, and even if, like you say, Reed doesn't get to do all that much in the series, you did have Marcy, who was the smart leader, that kind of thing, and you had the goon, and you had Ree, who was a little bit more the sort of straight and narrow character. Spring kind of has three school kids, and that's kind of them. They go out the way to define them, I guess. One's the sciencey one, one's the sporty one, but there's not. They're not as distinct, I guess, is what I'm saying, as the original three. But that doesn't matter because we're doing something different here. It's a very dark seasony plot, albeit a very dark seasony plot in the 2020s. And yes, Kate Winslet does turn up as Reed. I think it's the second episode when we first hear from her. She doesn't appear straight away. And she's in this series a lot more than I was expecting. Again, we'll come to this a little bit later, but she's in this series. There's quite a lot of her in it, which is great. That's what you want. I was slightly worried that we were getting a little bit of a cameo when they announced it, but she is a central character, and that's wonderful. The AI doorbell thing's very good, and it's sort of the way it evolves, and like you say, it keeps that sort of people and technology link alive again in a very more sort of modern kind of way to tell that story. But yeah, I like it. I think I'm putting Spring down as a winner. It's definitely the sort of story I wanted when I started listening to this set, having obviously by this point seen the series. Should we move on to summer?
Sure.
As we
Okay.
sit recording on a cold December evening, let's talk about summer.
Okay.
So, summer is a different kind of story again, really. Um, Plays with the same themes, same ideas, but it sort of it does something different again, and this is something that actually it consumes the school, which is not what Spring did. Spring was a mystery. Summer is not so much a mystery. It's almost like an alien invasion of the school. Almost, it's quite school reunion when you think about it. Tell us what your thoughts were.
Well, I think that's a pretty good distinction. Spring is quite localized, and it's about a family and sort of a person who's been affected as collateral damage. Summer is the whole school. So it's this reality TV series has come down upon their school, and they want everybody's permission to sort of film them and follow them around. And Taylor is the sort of paranoid one, so she refuses this. And it's a sort of gradual process of what's really going on here. Uh, Obviously, Taylor is right to be worried, and yeah, people start disappearing once they kind of reach a sort of skill or popularity threshold. It's a very classic kind of science fiction idea. The sort of once you get promoted, you're actually dead kind of thing. So there's a lot more kind of technology kind of to talk about in this one. This whole kind of cloud, I suppose, where the people end up, and they start to be used and degraded, and like physically degraded, but their selves are kind of taken away. Um, yeah, it's a very different kind of story to the first one, whilst sticking to the same themes. What you're saying about the characters, I do think it's fair to say they aren't as dynamic as the three in the TV series. And again, I think that might be because they don't have a Marcy, so to speak. They don't feel as driven by the mystery of the week. It's with original Season, it's literally there's a thing happening, that is all they are going to think about and act on for the next 3 or 6 episodes. That's it. It's going to be that march, 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 on we go. In the audio series, they're very much normalish kids having a life, and it happens to bump into a science fiction problem, which they will also incorporate. And in this one, it's not even overt that there is a problem. They just know they've got this reality TV series, and one of them isn't sure about it. So they're much more suspicious about stuff in the TV series, and kind of in Spring as well. So, but like you say, that's not necessarily a criticism, kind of a different flavour. I quite like the way that it feels like it's a more modern kind of kids in the frame. Yeah, I enjoy Summer. It's yeah, like I say, it feels like a kind of story that is sort of familiar to sci-fi fans. It's the promotion is death thing, but I think that works very well in the school setting, so I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it plucks at that kids want to be famous thing.
Hmm.
And it's sort of it makes school a particularly nasty place to set it. So where it's with impressionable people and that kind of thing. I do love that this is the one where Reet sort of has her heroic moment of marching into the school and going, right, I'm sorting this out. I'm not having this. And
Yes, absolutely.
sort of the villains know who she is and sort of get a bit excited that it's Reet that's after us. That's rather brilliant. So I think that's sort of really really well sort of done, and it sort of makes for some amusing scenes. We do have kind of the headmaster is under the influence again, which is becoming a pretty solid theme. It was there in the first series with the Mr. Eldritch stuff, and it's reared its head again here. Basically, yeah, the headmaster's in on it with the bad guys because they're controlling him. It's a proper dark season trope. So following summer is autumn, as it does with real seasons, not just dark ones. Autumn is quite a different story again. I think if I had to pick sort of a point where it stumbles, this might be it. It's not that I dislike it, it just feels as though we're really, really feeling the fact that Marcy's not here at this point. And I get that we're saving Marcy for the grand finale. I get that that's kind of what that is, and we're focusing on new and different characters here, and this is more grown-up Reed's story than grown-up Marcy's story, but there's just a hint of water treading in this one, maybe. Do you feel the same?
Yes, to be honest, I think again, this is a fine and polished script, and everyone's very good in it. Not saying it's a terrible story, but it for me it kind of feels a bit too similar to Summer. So you've got a problem which affects the whole school and is causing people to disappear and go to another realm. And I did kind of feel not only it's weird to have two of those in the set, but next to each other, that feels like something that I don't know, maybe at an earlier stage that could have been, if not vetoed, maybe kind of massaged into something a bit more dramatically different to Summer. Maybe I'd feel the same way about Summer if you swap these two stories around. Maybe. I mean, Summer does have that very big plus of Kate Winslet having a nice juicy role in it, but yeah, it's got the added complication of a sort of cuckoo character who's, this is another kind of thing you'll come across in lots of sci-fi, where there's a character who kind of inserts themselves and says, "Oh, I've been here all along," and the other characters treat this as normal, and the audience is the only one to kind of twig and go, "Oh, hang on," until someone in the cast goes, "Yeah, hang on, what's going on?" So I thought that was a fun added element, but yeah, at this point in the series, I was starting to kind of go, I don't know. It feels like they haven't got like a bottomless barrel of stories here. And there is also, and this is potentially a bit nitpicky, but it's worth saying all of these stories, it's heavily insinuated, have something to do with Mr. Eldritch. Like he's pulling strings from wherever it was he went at the end of the original series. And that's very, typical of a sci-fi villain. Doctor Who fans very familiar with the Master. He's always got 15 plans on the go. But the trouble is, much like the Master, the more plans you've got that all fail, it's one of those things that's kind of supposed to make the villain seem like a Moriarty figure who's behind everything weird that's going on. But when just none of it works, it's sort of potentially setting the villain up for a bit of a fall, because you're kind of like, well, he's getting foiled by a lot of school children. Can't help noticing that. So, yeah, I don't know. I think tying everything into Mr. Eldritch implicitly, anyway, is potentially a bit of a negative. And yeah, that feeling of kind of it's a compounded thing where like we're on the third story, it's not necessarily tearing itself away enough, and it's another evil plan that's gone awry. Yeah, so I think it's kind of a victim of being part of a box set. Really, it's not bad. It's often funny and it's quite poignant, really, towards the end when we learn more about that character who has joined the friend group somewhat spuriously. But yeah, I would agree. I think it's the weaker of the four.
I think you make an excellent point of it being just very, very similar to Summer. The whole idea of special class in this, and a people in Summer, kind of really, yeah, it's very, very similar. There are a few things I do like about this one. Sort of, it lets the new trio do something on their own. If I remember correctly, which I think I do because I've listened to all of this today. Reet's not in this one, so this is the one where there's kind of no influence whatsoever of an older Dark Season character. This is totally the trio on their own. Apart from obviously the bit at the end where Eldridge kind of drops in for a little cliffhanger teasy cameo. So yeah, I like the fact that we did get this story, that we got the sort of, well, this trio can stand on their own 2 feet thing, and part of me feels as though, okay, at this stage it's getting a bit tired. We've got what we can out of this, and the other part of me thinks, actually, I want more stories with just these 3, and I want stories without Eldridge hanging over them. I think there is sort of room for maybe a future in this range there. Whether they'd ever do any more or not, I don't know. But, I'm assuming they can't get Kate Winslet down the studio every few weeks. But they could potentially get these 3 new main characters. So yeah, it's certainly not enjoyable. But I'm with you. It's, of the 4 stories we've got here, it's certainly a candidate for the weakest. So the final one is Winter, and this is the one where all of a sudden there's loads and loads and loads and loads to unpack, because all of a sudden we are getting returning characters from the original series left, right and centre. So far we've only really had Reet. Winter gives us the original Miss Maitland. It gives us Mr. Eldridge. It gives us Marcy. Eventually, it still takes ages to get to the point where Marcy turns up. It just kind of throws everything at us, and this one's the nostalgia fest. If the first 3 are trying to sort of establish a new team and sort of have them exist in a modern dark season world, this is the one that goes, yeah, but we can have some fun with it. It's written by Russell T Davies himself, which I think is the only time Russell T Davies has written something for Big Finish. I could be wrong there. I know that he's sort of had things he's written adapted by Big Finish, but I think this is the only time he has written a Big Finish himself. And I love this. Like, I think that it gets the balance between telling a new story and nostalgia right. And I think it's an awful lot of fun. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, this feels like this is why this was the assignment in a way, because it's such a ridiculous coup that Kate Winslet was willing to come back, and then off the back of that, they've somehow arranged to get everybody back. And we're talking people who, in some cases, have retired from acting, like Mr. Eldridge, who in the Big Finish extras sounds absolutely bewildered that they would want him to come back and do some acting, but he's fantastic as the villain. Or everything you liked about him on TV, he's just as creepy. And at the other extreme, you've got people like Victoria Lambert and Ben, Chandler. Sorry, I'm looking at Wikipedia. I called her Nicola Lambert earlier on. Apologies. These people, as far as I can tell, have not acted since Dark Season. So that's quite significant that you would get them back to do this. And, Victoria also did an entire audiobook. That's quite an accomplishment. So I'm just very impressed with that. Thomas, the character, is in it for a phone call. So I'm guessing he wasn't really particularly fussed about doing a lot of drama. And I suspect there's a degree of like soft pedaling a bit to kind of go, well, look, Kate Winslet is Kate Winslet. These other guys probably don't want to do a huge amount of script reading. Maybe we'll kind of minimize it a bit. But even as someone who only saw the TV series a week earlier, I was so excited by there's the bit where Kate Winslet's character says something like, "We're going to need everyone." And I just thought, oh, this is so cool. It's ridiculous how easily pleased I am by these characters I've only just met. But I was so thrilled to have them back. As you said, they even get the original Mrs. Maitland back. And they all get to kind of reminisce a bit, but they all also get to kind of muck in and, kind of defeat the same problem that came up originally, which was the underground computer. I will just make a point of order here. It's called a behemoth. That's how it's pronounced. In the TV series, everybody calls it a behemoth. And they continue that in the audio stories. But fascinatingly to me, Russell T Davies pronounces it behemoth on the on the extras, so he knows how it's pronounced. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit.
It's Behemoth in the audiobook as well. Just
Oh my god!
so
I don't know where
in fact,
that's come from.
There's even a point where I think it's Miss Maitland goes, actually, it's pronounced Behemoth, and then everyone goes, yeah, Behemoth.
Oh, very annoying. But it's really satisfying to kind of loop everything around, because even within the TV series, you have those two stories, and as a viewer, you are like, yeah, what's this got to do with the last one? But there is that feeling of kind of a unified theme, and by bringing it back to the Behemoth, I might as well call it, yeah, it does pull the series together in quite a neat way. The one downside, I think, is that the three characters who we've built up do get kind of stuck on the sidelines, which is unfortunate. To be honest, there's just only so much room in an hour of scripted audio drama. You know, you can't have everybody doing stuff all the time. But the emphasis does go on Marcy once she comes back. Reet gets a lot more to do. Eldritch is there. He's taking a lot of focus. And the older Mrs. Maitland character, she's got quite a few little bravura moments, which is quite a nice little gift from Russell T Davies, really. Yeah, it's quite an action-packed kind of finale. It feels very Russell T Davies in a very good way. There's also little moments of camp. There's quite a bit of Eldritch actually saying Dark Season or Darkest Season in a way that is a bit of a nod and a wink. Weirdly, by the end of it, I think I'd had such a good time that I couldn't really remember what the story was. So all it's a rematch with the Behemoth, and Eldritch strangely seems very keen to open the door at the end to more adventures, which I don't know how likely that is. But he lets Marcy get away, kind of with the reasoning of like, well, when I defeat you, it'll be all the sweeter. So technically speaking, it's completely open for a sequel series. Whether they would get Kate Winslet back is obviously a very vexed question. She's clearly got massive affection for the TV series, but I don't know if that translates to doing two of them. But funnily enough, Jacob Dudman is kind of a big deal now. So I don't know. He's one of the three, and I saw him in a movie a few weeks ago, The Coral. He's very good singer apparently. Yeah, so I don't know if he'd come back. So it's a bit of a curious one whether we would get more, but it definitely ends on that note. They could do more. So I would welcome more. I would, like you, I think now that we've kind of done the nostalgia thing, it would be interesting to really go, all right, well, what new stuff can you do with these three characters and find out? And you don't really need Kate Winslet's character as such. Obviously, that's a ridiculously effective draw. But yeah, you could do more with them. So I don't know. I'll see what happens. But as a standalone hour, this is very enjoyable. If you have any interest in Dark Season at all, I think this hour is worth all of it. Just the sheer amazingness of like they actually did this. What a bizarre and bonkers thing to pull off. But quite an achievement, I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. It's got a lot of characters. This, how I said before that actually there were very few characters to really get stuck into in the audiobook. In this, there are a lot of characters, and well, it's because it's all of the new characters and all of the old characters back together. Yeah, you're right. Sort of one of them does quite literally phone in his performance, but otherwise, everyone gets something to do. Like even the original Miss Maitland's like, I'm not getting involved in the action, but I'm going to stay here and I will make the cups of tea. Like it's just wonderful. And it's, I suppose, it's written by Russell T Davies. I guess it's reminiscent of Stolen Earth Journey's End. That towards the very, very end when all the
Very
characters
much
are
so.
together and they're flying the TARDIS together and putting all the planets back in place. It's that vibe, isn't it? So I still think the greatest thing to come out of this, and nobody in the world is going to talk me down from this, Marcy is working from Unit. Like,
Well, I
there's
I do have a little thing to add there. That was
no.
actually introduced in a novel.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's
Oh,
still they still committed, but it's in damaged goods
it's damaged
apparently.
goods, isn't it? Yes, of course it is.
But this still canonizes it. You know, that's
Yes.
still big deal.
Yes, Marcy is working for Unit. I don't think they're ever directly referred to as Unit, boo, but it, the call signs are Unit call signs. The soldiers are calling Trap One and all that kind of thing. Like there's no two ways about it. We know what Russell's doing here. He is dragging Dark Season into the Hooniverse, and I want my Seventh Doctor and Marcy box set now.
I do want more Marcy.
Yeah, I want more
Pretty
Marcy.
please.
Yeah, come on, you can do it, Big Finish. To be honest, I really do hope there's a new set, or there's another set at some point, I should say. And I can live with Kate Winslet not being in it. If they can't get her, fine. They can write around it. You know, we never met any of the original trio's parents and all that kind of thing. She does not have to be in it. But I want more Marcy, because it was great her turning up for that last half an hour, but that's all we got. It was just half an hour of Marcy in the new set, and I wanted a lot more, actually. You know, Victoria Lambert's obviously up for recording with Big Finish. There's a wonderful bit, actually, in the extras to the audiobook, where they talk about how they genuinely had to track her down. Like, they'd no idea where she was. Eventually, I think Russell T Davies managed to sort of track her down, and Big Finish phoned her up and genuinely had to go, "Are you the Victoria Lambert that worked on Dark Season?" And she's head of drama at a school somewhere now, which is just wonderful. So she's obviously keen to sort of working with Big Finish a few days a year, which is all it takes. So maybe we'll get more. Maybe we'll get more Marcy with more. Like you say, potentially Jacob Dubman could be a bit of an obstacle now, because he is getting some bigger jobs. But then again, obviously Jacob Dubman was Big Finish's 11th Doctor for quite a while, and Big Finish have now got a new 11th Doctor. Couldn't they just get the new 11th Doctor to do Dubman in this as well?
Feels like Inception at this point, but yeah, you never know.
Dudception.
Yeah.
You never know. So yes, Marcy's working for Unit, and Winter just kind of brings the whole thing to a wonderful, wonderful conclusion, and leaves it open for more. And it ends in very much the same way the audiobook ends, which is kind of a hint that they're immediately moving on to another adventure. There's a reference to, like, oh, something's weird's happening at the arcade in the audiobook, and then this has this. Oh well, they're creating like AI 3D dating profiles, and like, yeah, we're off again. So yes, let's hope there's more. I'm certainly up for it, and when this podcast goes online, I'm going to spam Big Finish with it and tell them we've only done it because we want more, because we loved it. So that's been good. We've done something different. That was, I quite enjoyed talking about Dark Season. Are there any sort of final thoughts you want to add and end on?
I wonder if Century Falls is any good. That's about it. Oh, and it's pronounced Behemoth.
I think that's a behemoth of an argument you're starting there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was Dark Season. That was a slightly different podcast. We do like to sort of sidestep and look at different things every now and again, and it's always a good excuse to look at a big finish. We did talk about this when it first came out. I think Connor and I mentioned it on maybe a coffee bar episode or something, but we certainly never looked at it properly, and I'm really glad that we have, because it's given me an excuse to go back and listen to it again 2.5 years later, and I was delighted to find out that I enjoy the Legacy Rising set just as much now as I did upon release. So, good job, everybody. Really, really good. So yeah, here's hoping for more, and there will indeed be more spodcasting, but we'll probably bring this one to an end now. So thank you for joining me to talk about Dark Season, Gareth.
Thank you very much. It's been fun.
I say you joining me. It was more me joining you. I saw that you were watching it, and I thought, ooh, podcast opportunity, and indeed excuse to re-listen. So yes, we'll leave it there then, but we will be back for more spodcasting very, very soon. Goodbye now.